Welcome to the Comfortable in Chaos Podcast. Strangle your demons and let's go.
Y'all need Jesus!
I get a peaceful, easy feeling, and I know you won't let me down, especially on the Comfortable in Chaos podcast. I am your host, Eric Hellberg, and we're like Einstein over here, men. We have no special talents. We're just passionately curious about all things pertaining to men. How in the hell did we get here, and where is it that we want to go? You know, we play alphabet soup a bunch here on the Comfortable in Chaos podcast. We like rolling particular letters together, sometimes even phonetically, right? What did we already say? Peaceful, passionately, pertaining to. What is it that we're actually talking about today? We're talking about peace and or the absence thereof. In the oft-quoted book, Sun Tzu's The Art of War, there's a couple of different tenets there. One I'll paraphrase, one I'll give you verbatim. The first that we all know is, know thy enemy and you will know thyself. The second one is in order to ensure peace, 1P, prepare, 2Ps, for war. So by preparing for war, you have a much better chance of ensuring peace. But what I'm going to tell you when we hearken back to the first tenet mentioned, know thy enemy and you will know thyself, I think in a large part that women today do not have peace. Therefore, since their internal environment, think of our show, is chaotic, they must pass that on and take away the peace of their closest external environment. Now, Eric, how could that be? Well, you do have some Neanderthalish women, very primitive, solely self-serving, that create chaos and destruction wherever they go. But I would tell you that many high-value women, however you choose to describe it, let those adjectives fill in your head, with many of society's desirable attributes, can hold that back while they are out. But it can only be done for so long. And typically, like an Instapot, after you've raised that pressure and or been cooking for a period of time, that steam starts coming out, right? Till you flip the handle and you have an outright release. I would venture to tell you even further that men are more stable on the whole than women. We desire peace. And in fact, it is those latent periods of peace that allow us to perform when called upon and or when necessary. Think about it. Oftentimes, especially amongst my listeners, we have guys that work in very competitive realms, very demanding realms, maybe very perilous and or dangerous realms. And you cannot stay jacked up, amped up, vigilant over prolonged periods of time, or much akin to a car battery. Well, the amperage, the voltage, it starts to diminish. It goes down. And ultimately what happens is it takes an external charge, something very significant, to get it going again. But once you've moved down that line of the process, the capacity of that battery is then flawed. And you can only go through those motions so many more times before you need an entirely new one. Thus, we must have the ability to maintain peace. And I will tell you, despite everything else in the world, and you've got all these crazed videos out there saying, what do men really want? And of course, there are a myriad of others specifying what women want. But what men really want and desire, the often unspoken trait unspoken about, how about that, is they want peace from their loved one. And I'll venture to tell you this too. In the absence of said peace, a man will not be able to provide their loved one what it is that they want. What does a lady want? Oh, I want closeness. Can you have that in the absence of peace? Oh, I want this and that type of sex, this way, that way, this duration. Bring this into the fold, forge this connection. Can that happen in the absence of peace? Oh, I just want to sit around and share and talk. Can that happen in the absence of peace? We're on the Comfortable in Chaos podcast. Well, something is amiss here, right? Isn't that really what's wrong with the world? We are a world at war. Meaning, we are currently, and it's been that way a long time, it looks like it's going to get worse. We are in a world without peace. And that's why we are all shaken up. It has become so apparent, so looming now, that it weighs upon us. We all know something isn't right. We can feel it. Well, how about this, ladies? Yes, we are a show for men, but I do have a smattering of ladies listening at this point. And if you are a male listener, one of my vaunted few, simply see if this correlates with your life in any way, shape, or form. But I'll be addressing it as a woman's actions. So I will speak of the opposite sex. Here's a good place to start, ladies. Tomorrow morning when you walk into your workplace, whatever that is for you, roll right on up to the boss. Hell, it could even be a lady. But let's say it's a man. Start yelling at those mothers, man. Let them know how you feel. You betcha. What you perceive them to be deficient in, what you perceive their alleged transgression to be, and what's going to happen with the lady. She's going to be like, well, my God, a lack of emotional fitness and definitely challenging my authority, even a lady boss. Or better yet, get out your finger, could poke him in the chest. Now, I know that could be, lady physical contact, but just thump that dude in the chest, maybe wag it in his face, and or if that's not good enough, hey, say your 2 cents, get it off your chest because you're feeling volatile right now, right? You just couldn't keep it in. And maybe just put your hands on your hips and give him an indignant, glaring stare. That ought to demonstrate it to him, right? You're not going to do that, ma'am? You will not take away those people's peace? That's interesting. Okay. How about this one? We know the world is devoid of peace. Let's say you're one of these ladies who's good with the fellas. Man, you can get along with all kinds of people, man. They're like buds to you. You can high five them, man. You can drink with them. You can do all that stuff. So you're out catching a ball game with your male buddies and they've accepted you. Man, you feel proud of that. You're just one of those dudes. And dude comes in there, starts one hell of a fight, and it gets real close to your table. Now there's extra people involved. It's kind of spilling over your table. Maybe they've hit the chair. Hey, maybe someone got slung on the table whereby you're sitting. Now, I guess we could have two different approaches. Now, despite the fact that you've been taking peace, you would like to see a little chivalry demonstrated for you. And you're going to sit there demure while another man rises up to perpetuate peace, help you out? Or are you going to get a little comfortable in the chaos and bring a little peace to yourself? Yeah, I know you are all hardened ladies, and you have a right to express yourself. You certainly do. Well, how about this? Let's have all the men remove themselves in your local community from the fire department, the police department, sheriff's office. Hell, let's just strip our military of all the men serving. Well, we augment them too, Eric. We sure do. We serve as well. Come on. Even the ladies that serve in those capacities know the truth. And you know it too. You're there, since I used the word before, simply to augment their physicality and their mental stability and to help them in the endeavors which they primarily accomplish. And you know what would happen if you removed them all and replaced them with you ladies? You would be a slave very, very quickly. Well, I only act this way, Eric, because I don't want to be a slave. I know, ladies. I know. You've been fed a stale loaf of bread. You're living back in the past. I get it. But back in the past, especially in the non-Western world, did people create love, fall in love, and then foster a marriage that lasted a lifetime? Or were many of those marriages arranged? Yeah, two people were brought together from societal influences and or familial influences, and guess what? Well, they learned how to love by simply committing to one another. Oh, I need to take peace because I'm special. You're special? There's probably 4 billion of you on the planet. You're special because you were chosen by a man, and my guess is you chose that man as well. That's where the love begins and godly providence begins, because now you are the one. It wasn't because you were both doing missionary work in India and all of a sudden you say, God put us together, because how else could you explain that I'm a female missionary in India, he's a male missionary in India, and it couldn't have happened any other way? Well, it damn sure could too. You think there's only Hindus and Sikhs over in India? It's the most populous country in the world now. Just under 1.5 billion people. So let's say roughly half of those people are women. The other half being men. All right, well, you mentioned God. Okay, so you couldn't have met a potential Christian mate there while you are doing missionary work in India? God comes into the plan should you allow him to do so once you choose this one to be the one and that one to be the one. Remember Matthew 5:9, blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be the children of God. Now that you have the one you have chosen, and or there is some pursuit there in that direction as it is being established, you now want something else, right? Isn't there something else, ma'am, that you want from this man? Want, right? Well, what is it? To be happy? To have a better life? Do you think that you can have that without peace? And men, think about when you were the most prosperous. You can even go all the way back to courtship, the most effectual time of that courtship, whereby you and your potential spouse were getting along the best, and or fast forward many years into marriage, when you were the most prosperous. And that does not just mean financially. That just means in those areas of contentment, simply enjoying one another's company. You were building, you were allowed to be during the most peaceful times, right? The man can soar in times of peace, i.e. the eagle. No man wants to sit on the power pole lines with another gaggle of birds waiting to get zapped, fall off, and listen to all of that crap that really does not pertain to them. Women, cultivate peace in yourselves. That's not the responsibility of your mate and or your husband. Yes, there is a preserving of that through an art and an action of protection. But you guys are matriculating a million things, meaning you guys, ladies, in your minds. Men, have you ever had your wife, and or even if you're dating, and you look at them and their wheels are just spinning? And women like this typically have a very hard time sitting still. They have a very short attention span. They're always looking for the next best thing, something to capture their attention and or their efforts. A constant churning. Have you ever noticed in women like this how hard it is, almost physically hard, by which they have to contain themselves from having an outburst, saying what is really on their minds? Typically, something derogatory in respect to you, and or some type of performance, and or an expectation of an expectation, right? Because there's expectations there. Not only is that true for the lady, but she expects you to react in a certain way in order to meet the expectation in her mind. Women are in turmoil, and they are creating turmoil. We've talked about it in previous episodes. 80% of divorces are initiated by the ladies. Well, does that mean that only 20% of the men out there are generally well-meaning and or good men? I don't think so. We also know that in the realm of therapy, licensed professional counselors, psychologists, psychotherapists, et al., 80% of that industry is female. All right. Well, if only 20% of them are men, my guess is that this gender bias lays there simply because there are so many wanton women with so many suppressed feelings and or problems, at least that they perceive, that still need to be adjudicated within their own selves. And it's also known that the majority of counseling that occurs, especially in couples therapy, takes place at the behest of the woman. She drags her boyfriend, typically the spouse, in there, lays out how she's been victimized and or not simply getting what she wants, and then the ensuing battles begin. Where does all this come from? A lack of peace within themselves. And just like us, man, if we have some baggage and or some things that we have carried into a relationship, women oftentimes have it as well. And when you get a lady who acts in this regard, they typically are running from something in childhood whereby they saw some things, experienced some things, some abhorrent things. And they have made some inner vows, never again. Much akin in my case, after my dad passed away and my mom was kind of fleeting, I basically said after trying to jump in my mom's bed as an 8-year-old a few times over a few months after that, I just got tired of crying. I made an inner vow. I'm never going to cry again. I'm never going to let someone see me hurt again. And even more so, I'm never going to allow myself to be hurt. That's called sealing something in an emotional vault. But what if the lady went through something similar but different and made some type of internal vow? I'm never going to let a man treat me like this. I will never put myself in this position. I will never. You fill in the blanks, right? So they're always on guard. They're always quantifying actions and data. Oh, it's exhausting because it takes away peace for them and also for you. That's not your job to fix that. That's their job. And if it is manifesting itself later on in your relationships, and because of your own scars, you've allowed it, and or you are simply generally well-meaning and you will be tolerant. Women love tolerance, especially when it is self-serving. And the longer you allow that to happen, the more difficult it will be to stop it well, now is the time to stop it. Because the longer you let it go, yes, you need a completely new change of your dynamic, but the harder it will be. The time is right now to reshape and or reorganize that relationship. And if this is happening in courtship, when there are no stressors of life, now granted, we know that people jump from partner to partner, marriages to marriages, all looking for what they think they didn't receive in the previous relationship. And data shows us how tough it is to get it from each successive partner, especially as you've been diminished in the last relationship. But yet you're now going to put these new expectations on someone that need to be filled, that bucket, right? We got to fill that bucket because it was always seemingly empty. It doesn't work. And if you are encountering this, my young man, early on, let's say you're not jumping from a marriage, trying to find something that you perceive you didn't receive in one before and that you're going to get it in the next marriage, but you're simply dating, finding out about one another, and you don't have a lot of those responsibilities and pressures of life other than to just be and learn, and you are being hit with volatility and a lack of peace, that is not coming from you. And I can tell you, if you don't put your foot down, you will never have peace. You may adapt. But what will happen is down the road, no amount of counseling, no amount of books, no amount of sex therapy will ever get you to that point whereby there is now a lack of contention, only contempt. F that. Walk away and preserve your peace. And if the lady isn't willing to do so when you stand your ground, that should tell you right there that she has a profound, another P, lack of interest in peace and only wants to preserve what she perceives is her way. And yes, just like Sun Tzu said, in order to ensure peace, prepare for war. If you keep a man without peace, over time, you will then have to prepare for the latter. It just will not work. Find it, ladies, and give it to your men. So until next time on the Comfortable in Chaos podcast, I am your host, Eric Hellberg. I bid you bon voyage, my burgeoning flock.
Until next time, like and subscribe to the Comfortable in Chaos podcast.